already. The invite said we are starting at 8, and it's a minute after 8. I don't see the minutes again. And I also didn't see some of the members. Not the campus states, very much. And I don't see the other members of the committee as well. So, in your hands, so we may proceed. So I don't want us to proceed without the executive just follow up. HOD, can you just follow up? I think there was a confusion also in time. Someone think it was at 9, some think it's at 8.
So, I just wanted to check with regards to quantum. We not need 3 members. Oh, 3, yes, apologies. Math is not my favorite subject. Thanks.
Yeah. Remember, we are indeed a quorum, but as I said, executive, president. If he was here, then we're going to continue. But I think we need just to make a holiday.
Yes, after listen. Okay. This is our impression is 9 o'clock. That's on its right.
Thanks to the minister. We have a few minutes to have coffee. And then as soon as the minister comes, then we continue. Start in order, please. In order, so. Cheers. Once you drill, it's just not. But I'm not. The last thing is two places. That changes like what is going to be in place, what is going to be in place. Also, that's like that means this is better to say, okay, this one is a bad break. He said, just a bit. Stick to it. But this is not the answer. The latest level. So the information that to read is on the film and then it's the thing. It's the real actions that stories. I think
You're absolutely right. Never doubt.
Oh, that, yes, he knew.
Oh, remember.
Oh, I say yes, but it was an hour.
Yeah. And this is something else when you committee members, but I had my eye at 9 o'clock. But luckily, I was young as not first of all of us. Actually.
Colleagues, thank you very much. Before we start, I will just allow each member to have a minute of silence for prayer or meditation. Thank you very much, colleagues. Colleagues, allow me to welcome you to the Standing Committee of Local Government to deliberate on the adjustment estimates of the financial year 2022-2023, and also to deliberate on the main budget for the financial year 2023-2024. Before we do that, colleagues, I will just use this opportunity to introduce myself as Isaac Mbulelo Sileku. I am the chair of the Standing Committee of Local Government, and I will also allow members to introduce themselves.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and the officials. My name is Mashini Masiko and I'm a member of the State Committee. Good morning, Chair, and good morning and welcome everybody. My name is Kena Mari and I'm a CEO. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. I will also allow the support staff to introduce themselves.
Morning, Chair, morning, members, colleagues. My name is Johan Kutsi. I'm the procedural officer for the Standing Committee on Local Government.
And John, before we go over to the minister, is there any apologies that has been forwarded to members?
Chairperson, no apologies.
So we are indeed a quorum because we are 3 out of the 5 members. So we continue. Minister, I won't waste any time, and I see a lot of old and new faces. I will allow you the opportunity to introduce yourself, as well as the officials also to introduce themselves. Thank you very much.
Chair, I'm Anton Patel, responsible for local government.
Honourable members and colleagues, I'm Scott Hastings. This afternoon has been seen as responsible for this culture.
Morning, Chair, members, Roland Disaster Management.
With Jacobs, responsible for management and in the Department of Local Government.
Good morning, Chair and honourable members.
And honourable members, with the Department.
Big Chair and honourable members, Commonwealth and local government and
Good morning, Chair, and honourable members. I'm Morris.
Morning, Chair and members and team. Morning, colleagues. On the victorious service delivery integration.
Thank you very much, colleagues. The HOD, any apologies that you would like to record from your side? Consider it, but because I don't want us to deal with appropriation adjustment first and allow and let you leave, I would ask the colleagues if it's fine if you allow the department to deal with the adjustment. When they are done, we can go to the next, to the new book, and then when we have done engaging on both, then they can be excused, and then we can deliberate on both those issues. Is that fine with colleagues?
Chair.
Thank you very much. Then Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Around the table, it's experience with self. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you to morning to the colleagues. Thank you for being here. Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity to present the 2022-2024 appropriation budget for the Department of Local Government to the Standing Committee. The budget table today is for 369,866,000 rand. The amount of 88,815,000 rand reflected in the adjustment estimates for 2022-2023 is funds allocated from the unforeseen and unavoidable reserves in terms of Section 25 of the MFMA for emergency and immediate response to the impact of the demand load shedding in our local municipalities. Chairperson, electricity blackouts are creating havoc throughout South Africa, and especially our small municipalities are paying the price. Our data shows that the rest of this year will be characterized by an average of stage 4 load shedding with intermittent periods of levels 6. This has serious consequences for municipalities to provide safe drinking water and to treat waste water management. I want to thank my cabinet colleagues for the 88,815,000 rand emergency funds in this regard. We are using these funds for the procurement of emergency generators in our municipalities to provide backup for specifically water infrastructure. Chairperson, this is another example of the large role this small department plays in our governance. The continuous support and guidance to municipalities received, I think, is one of a kind in South Africa, and I want to congratulate the team. With the experience within the team, we manage a small team to support our municipalities where needed. Also, less than 4.9% of our households have reported that water interruptions compared to the average of 30.8%. I think that's also accolade to our engineers and UI analysts working throughout December, keeping water in the taps. Our population is growing fast and people are relocating to municipalities in the Western Cape. We need to plan and budget for basic services. Honourable Chair, we need to plan our towns to be attractive for capital, which will grow, and then our economy will grow, and that will create jobs. As such, I am excited about the 15-year water resilience plan, which we will share with stakeholders next week during a 2-day water in Dalba and water innovation exhibition together with the City of Cape Town. Yesterday, we mentioned in the impact of climate change during the presentation of the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. Water resilience plan takes cognizance of the impact of climate change coupled with our need for economic and population growth. This also highlights the importance of sustainable infrastructure development and financial facilities CDAS programs. Infrastructure is the backbone on which our economy, but also our management of our natural resources such as water is built. Here we are at the end of our traditional fire season without any major events to report. This is not due to luck. It is because of hard and dedicated work performed by our Disaster Management Centre, which coordinate the provincial response to wildfires throughout the Western Cape. The Premier assigned the powers and functions relating to the traditional Khoisan matters as the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act 2019 to the Minister responsible for local government. As such, the department is required to develop policies, legislation, and policies to implement certain provisions of the Act. I now hand over to the HOD and his team to discuss the budget in greater detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Before you hand over, is there anything that you would want to add, HOD? Thanks. Colleagues, I will allow you an opportunity to engage and interrogate the minister's opening remarks if there's any.
There's no questions.
That's now clear. Thank you very much, Minister. Colleagues, then I would like to table the Western Cape Additional Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2022-2023 financial year on pages 11, 15. Your hands, colleagues. Yes, thank you. Yes. Plus a year after my 50. Okay.
I don't have questions.
Thank you very much.
Chair, sorry,
Is there any question, Member Moran?
Chair, sorry, just for clarity, I know that we received this lovely little summary in here. I was wondering if the public might be saying was to read it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Eventually, please let it out. On the adjusted budget, yeah, that's the 88. Yes, I can.
Now again. Sorry, I didn't follow.
She just wanted the department to take a second.
Okay. So it is, as the minister said, it's 88.9 million. It has fundamentally been for backup generators at various municipalities. So during the latter part of last year, we struggled significantly with just water in municipalities and with sewage. And so the minister has approached the Minister of Finance by means of Section 25, it's a funding. And so the engineers have actually made an assessment of all the municipalities where we are struggling with backup generators. We've done various other things. We relied on the national departments, on businesses, and so on. But we deemed it appropriate that we should do our own initiative around it. So the engineers have engaged all the municipalities except the City of Cape Town, because the City of Cape Town has also assisted us some kind of support in getting generators to lower capacity municipalities. And there was a great support to us. And based on the assessment and predetermined criteria, we then identified this for critical infrastructure. It doesn't imply that it's actually all the infrastructure, the water and the sewage installations in municipalities, just for certain ones, which is critical for the economy and for the citizens and so on. And based on that, we then allocated based on the size of the water treatment works and wastewater treatment works, the size of the generators with associated costs. What we've also done is, because they haven't covered all the wastewater treatment works and water treatment works, gave the district municipalities roaming generators. So in the event that there is maybe a smaller pump station, or there is a smaller water installation works that has problems, we can arrange with a particular district to put that on a trailer and so on and take it there, so that it's actually water. I mean, we had significant problems. The load shedding has compounded that. But what has also happened is when they let electricity off, the load shedding had to come back. Find that the breakers are tripping. Eskom staff had to go out individually and sort it out. And that actually prolonged the load shedding. Additional 2 hours, additional 4 hours, additional 5 hours. And we had various complaints from many citizens and municipalities about the impact on people's lives, on the medicine, and on just the food they were preparing for the festive season, and the food went off. And besides, in Swaziland, we had a transformer actually. And I think the department, together with the engineers and the staff, played a critical role in liaising with Eskom and trying to get Eskom on board. And Eskom itself, they had significant capacity challenges. And so, just with all the initiatives around us, we were able to deal with the frustration amongst community members, with the anger, and we could assist municipalities with this. Chairperson and honourable members, that the
funding has now been dispersed to all the municipalities. There has been TPAs approved and signed by all of us, those that are authorized to sign it. And the payment patch with the Department of Finance, and that has now been processed. Municipalities, when this was approved about 2 months ago, we were given it letters. They've actually started the procurement process already, so that they never wait for the funding. And now the funding has been transferred in this week, and the balance over the balance of this week. But the funding has been dispensed. We can give you a breakdown on the amounts that each of the municipalities have received. Whether we can give it now or we can actually, but we've got it now with us, Kira or Maris, and just reflect on the amounts that we've given some of the municipalities. Thanks.
HOT, just to us, is the breakdown, is it not part of the company's, the HSH7?
It's about that.
Yes. The colleagues, 787 is where the breakdown is for the municipalities and problems. I'll give over to Member McNabb to give me each on the answer.
Thank you very much. I just want to find out because with load shedding happening, that in a way is like a short-term solution, especially being the maintenance to the generators and also the diesel that the generators will need. And we do have some municipalities that financially they are struggling. So what is the action plan after the generator phase? And how are we going to roll out in making sure that we bit by bit take off the generators from the municipalities to have something that can sustain those municipalities in making sure that they are working towards a long-term solution or the permanent solution to their problems. Do we have a way of dealing with that? Or and then the term, if you can indicate maybe the term of the generators, because also they've got a lifespan. And then what is the lifespan of those generators as we speak? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chief. I do have some questions on the 88 million, but I am mindful that Mr. Diner does have to leave, and I would like to ask about disaster management in particular. So I wanted to understand from the budget whether there was an increase or decrease in allocations related to your portfolio, and also resultantly, I wanted to understand whether you foresaw an increase in costs as a result of environmental concerns, as a result of possible future unrest, which seems to be a massive risk, and also as a result of possible stage 8. And related to stage 8, whether any budget allocation has been assigned to deal with the possible fallout from that. Thank you.
I've just got one question in terms of 88 million. There's a tendency of in our country that we should start giving, you keep on giving. You must give a person a car, and then you must give him a driver's license. Then you must give him that. So what I've heard is that people are welcome the generators, but the outcry has been diesel. Has there been any engagement from the partner side with the relevant municipalities to make sure that generators does not become white elephants, that they can try to do what we want them to do? And that is question number one. And question number two, municipalities are prone for vandalism. Has there been a plan from different municipalities to make sure that these generators are not vandalized and that our money goes down the drain? And yeah, I'll just my question. Thank you very much.
Jay, maybe I must just start off because the committee must understand that this team had a terrible December. Working in the field, the question is do nothing and wait till there's no electricity, no water. And what then everybody is going to come down on us. Because part of this debate with Treasury was also that asked, what about solar? What about wind? What about yes, in a year's time? The current crisis is now. And the crisis that we had to work out with the team, remember before December, November around, it was stage 3 load shedding. The city helped us a lot and bigger municipalities with generators to smaller municipalities. Now, this is big machines on low bed trucks, move around. engineers getting involved, etc. Then it goes up to stage 4, 5, and the city said, I need my generators also, and the bigger municipalities. The team at the States had to bring down a generator from the local on the local. In the meantime, the system is not designed for this on and off and on and off. So transformers blew up. You must get extra generators. So for us, and more, the complaints started about the quality of the water then. Get water, then the water is brown, and then especially the people doing the washing, they be furious because whites come out all sorts of colors, etc., etc. So our first immediate, and that's why the team had to, and I must also thank the colleagues in finance for processing this very quickly. The supply chain unit, etc. We don't have 6 months. We had to do it. We had to do it now so that we can keep the systems up and running. Remember, if the system don't run, there's overflows in sewage and Swellen Dam. We had to, Marius and the team had to even get bulldozers to keep raw sewer from running into the river, because at the stage Swellen Dam was off for 30 hours of generators that blew up, except for everything went wrong there. So it was an intense system. If you look at, yes, and we've tried to, because we must also be aware of corruption and all this. So, and make sure that the money we allocate to the municipalities will go to the generators for what they ask it for, and not going into our operation budget or just disappear. So we had to get that commitment from the municipalities. We had to get a commitment from the municipalities. They will have the money for the diesel. Because the municipalities also sit with no electricity, no water, or we get funding for diesel. So yes, it's not a perfect plan. It is not having a plan. So the white elephant issue, if you talk to the municipalities, I can tell you that their biggest expense is actually to guard the generators. So in a municipality from Aldersley, when there's load shedding, they will send a policeman with the generator to Abbotsford. He will guard the generator through during load shedding. Then he will hook it, take it back to Aldersley after, and up and down. And now you've got a policeman guarding that. That's their real cost. If you talk to bigger companies like Vodacom and they've got serious problems with people stealing these. There's like a mafia working with this. In other provinces, they cast it in concrete. They steal it with concrete and they've got cranes. And they take it to a certain place and they just dismantle it. It's on trucks and it's gone. It's in the system. So I think this is an ongoing battle. Vandalism doesn't mean we must not come up with a solution to try to keep the system running. It was all to really try to keep the system up and running. So again, I think we're the only province. I think it was the right thing to do. Now we look at different other options for longer term. Containers, solarized containers. Colin will go now into, I don't know if it's the electricity. So, but there's also a package for poor households that we want to roll out to support them. Now we've got time to roll that out, but you must package it now, 3 months, 6 months. And I can tell you now that the grid is under serious threat. If anything goes wrong, we're in big trouble. So everybody's being nervous working in the space. Last year, if you talk, remember Mary talks about state aid. I think the big issue is that the engineers don't know what the system will do or how it will react to go about above 6. And that's their big worry. They just don't know. So anything can happen. But yeah.
Perhaps to add to the minister, so our arrangement with municipalities was that we will supply the funding for the generators, and that's one sort. And they would supply the diesel, they'll be responsible for the maintenance and the safekeeping of the generators. We also wanted to have the funding for diesel, and we said no, we can't do that. They told us significantly over the last while how they increased the budget for diesel, adjustment budget, and so on. It's just exorbitant. So the generators was actually on the basis of that we saw this as an immediate emergency response to help municipalities. So as the minister said, we are also part of the energy team in the province. So over the MTIP, there's 1.1 billion that's been allocated for the province for the energy response. And we got for the first year, we got about 58 million to deal with the energy crisis. And as the minister said, that was immediate. We are now looking for a sort of an interim solution. And we'll pilot it in the next month or so. We want to take certain towns and certain municipalities off the grid or otherwise less reliant on the ESCOM grid. And myself and Albi and others that are working in the space, we are busy identifying the key towns and municipalities. And there's other stuff, as the minister said, with the packs and that kind of stuff and so on, to help citizens with it, inflation to that. So, Chairperson, we've also allowed municipalities where they pass cover the safekeeping of it, in other words, to engage it and so on, so that they actually prevent the vandalism of these generators in certain municipalities. So that was immediate. So, but we have other initiatives in the pipeline to assist municipalities and make them less reliant on the existing. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, we did. We have received 10.25 million for the next year, and then 7.5 and then 7. So if I can maybe just quickly mention the projects, we have a question around load shedding and the fact that we have to plan for that. So our responsibility in the disaster management center is to prepare the province for basically 2 system emergencies. The one is the worst case scenario, which would be a national blackout. And the other one would be, as the minister mentioned, prolonged load shedding, which then leads to the fact that your systems do not replenish, and then you end up with some different challenges. So just if we look at the projects, the first one is we're looking at what we call a priority hazard model. So, there's only a finite amount of responders to any emergency. You only have so many firefighters, so many rescuers, so many. And for us, what really works is if we are able to model on maps where fires are going to go, where floods are going to go. And we do a lot of that kind of work. So it helps us to be able to place our resources in better positions. It also helps us to do risk reduction, because what we can then do is we can identify which are alien invasive trees, which normally are the big problems with drought as well as with fires. And then we model sort of what the risk would be. So that's one of the projects. We also noticed, and it's been a thing for a long time now, that although we have disaster management officials in municipalities, we also have to have other officials in municipalities that have awareness of disaster management. So we're going to roll out a program with universities to build the capacity at municipalities for them to understand disaster risk and how to manage risk. Another big area that we're looking at is connectivity. So if we do have this the national blackout scenario or a long-term load curtailment scenario, we end up with connectivity. So the work that we've done has basically indicated that within 8 to 10 hours we lose cell connectivity. People will not be able to communicate. So we're looking at a completely system that, if we go dark, is completely off the grid. So basically we will be able to communicate by satellite. The problem you've got is with terrestrial communications, you need electricity in a lot of areas. With satellite, you need a ground station and you're able to communicate directly. So we would be able to make sure that cabinet, the disaster management, the provincial top management, everybody can communicate if all systems are down. And then we've just got 2 other projects which are basically transfers. We've noticed that the biggest rapid response incident, sudden onset disaster emergency response in our area of floods. So we respond to floods in our own province. We've been called to respond in other provinces. So we are putting together a specialized cache of equipment, which will be placed strategically in a district in the province, which will contain all the kind of equipment that you need to respond to a large flood disaster. That will be placed, and then that can be moved to wherever a flood is taking place, whether it be in this province or outside. And then further, the incident that we saw in Urleni in December last year with the explosion, is obviously a massive amount of hazardous chemicals that move in and out of the province that are used in process plants. And the way you deal with them is different to dealing with your normal pipelines. That's particularly toxic corrosive materials that could be exposed and cause a hazard. So what we're doing is we're building the province's resilience to be able to respond to those kind of incidents.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Member Kamandabo. And just to brief you to bring up, we are busy with a the additional adjustment appropriation. So if there's any question from your side, you want to know about to engage. It's from page 11 until page 15.
Thank you, Chair. My sincere apologies to the times wrong. Apologies for that.
From your side, about the adjustment. Happy. Members, is there any follow-up questions?
Yeah, perhaps if I can make a suggestion. Given that it's been such a short period on receiving the budget until having the sitting, perhaps we can take questions based on the entire budget and put that to you. Okay. Thank you for indulging the chair. Just to go back to the 88 million then, I wanted to understand, Minister had mentioned that they were looking specifically at some municipalities that were struggling. If perhaps we could get more clarity on which of those municipalities in particular were struggling and what were the causes contributing to them needing additional support. Perhaps this might also relate to an issue of coalition governments that are failing. It would be interesting to get more detail on that, and also on how specifically it's being addressed. On the 88 million as well, how much, and apologies if you have answered this, but how much of that is on diesel in and of itself, and how much of that is of security personnel, and then the actual generator? If I could just get a breakdown of that 88 million a little bit. And then Chile, you leave it for them. That's okay.
Thank you, Member. Judy.
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson, for the question. So, just on the 88 million, so say that there was no diesel provision for the 88 million. That was our arrangement with municipalities. They had to put diesel themselves. Sensitize municipalities in this upcoming budget, given the pressure of diesel, and they must actually look at their budget to decrease, given the projections of Eskom in relation to the stages of load shedding for the balance of the year. And I think many municipalities, just based on the past experience of the last couple of months, are in the process of actually increasing their diesel budget because of that increase. And it doesn't include security personnel. What we have done, though, we said that municipalities have asked us to engage the generator because, as the minister said, there's extensive vandalism of these. And some of the generators, just in relation to boreholes, not in this, but in previously we funded, and those generators are in the mountain. Find that those kind of generators are actually vandalized and so on. So, as the minister was going to explain, some municipalities have asked us not for security personnel, but whether they can actually engage it to prevent it from being vandalized. And we will, just like that, we have actually proved it. This in relation to the struggling municipalities is where there's no capacity. So you'll find generally where there's capacity challenges in relation to technical staff, both wastewater treatment works and the water treatment works. They maybe have a directed technical that's vacant. And so there are capacity challenges in those municipalities. And we have supported those municipalities by actually employing some of our own engineers in the province to go and help those municipalities for a period of time. So in the case of Mansakama also, we've facilitated an agreement between West Coast District Municipality and the Mansakama Municipality to go and help them and employ some of their own engineers to that extent. So it's and I mean we were last week on Friday we were again at Cedarbug. So there are challenges in relation to the technical capacity in municipalities. And part of the funding that we also got to energy is to see how do we assist municipalities in relation to technical skills. And we will also appoint, the idea is to appoint some kind of engineers to help these municipalities. So it's fundamentally a smaller struggling municipalities, struggling to attract skill and confidence in those areas. and we actually identify and go out and help them, not only by means of funding, but actually support and bringing some of our engineers to those ones. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anything to talk about? I have it. Members, is there any follow-ups? Okay.
Oh, we're good. Sorry, Chair. Wait, what's made by you?
Then from my side, Minister HOD, thank you very much for clarifying your questions in terms of adjustment, which involve especially to 88 million. So I think members are now clear in terms of who will benefit it, who's going to be responsible for the maintenance and safeguarding of the individual generators, and also in terms of TISA, who's putting provision for that. So then, colleagues, I'm going to table the blue book. Then we are going to go to the deliberations of Vote 14 of local government in the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Vote 2023. Start from pages 735. It ends by page 792. So when we engage in terms of questions of clarity, we are going to take it from pages 735 to 745. So if members have questions based on those particular pages, this is your opportunity now to raise those questions. Thank you very much. Member Marcelo.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think also it was the issue of not hearing each other with member, because she was already saying that she's asking also from the main manager, because there's overlapping of the questions that we asked from them. So I just want to find out, from page 736 on the demands and changes in space, one of the issues of the question. I want to find out if there is a complicated one. There is the indication of the cost that can be attached to what is expected from the province, and maybe you can focus on how is that going to happen. I understand the election that the province also have the responsibilities, but every new responsibility or legislation comes with the cost. And now, who is going to carry the cost? And then how is that going? And do you have an indication of the directive of what needs to happen? You do have it, but the attaching money attached to that directive, do you have an indication of when is that going to be happening, and what is the expectation? In fact, some of the system of all this directive to the local government. If we can hear what are the expectations, and then maybe attach the total cost to the legislation that will be about from 736, that will be all for me. And the other question I think from me will be, we are going to for the municipalities support. We are going to the elections for 2024, and much is not the local government elections. One way or another, there is there's changes that happen when they happen. So I just want to find out the sort of a threshold from the department on if something can happen to one of the municipalities, the readiness that they have for the elections 2021. Are you planning to do the same thing for 2024? And if you had to indicate to us that what are the preparations, and maybe say what is the difference if you do those preparations from the 2021, which is direct to local government, versus the national, and the cost implications, looking at the challenges that we have from Provincial the load shedding. Last one is what we've been talking about of the lost water in maintenance of in the municipalities, because we can always say we pump water, but the output of the water from where you started always it has been that it doesn't tally when you look at what municipalities get at the end. To what extent are we still trying to make sure that municipalities, their maintenance is in order to make sure where's the problem, and if the department now have identified municipality by municipality to try to help them, how do they identify where are they using the water? And since we have the Department of Infrastructure, how is that going to also add value to the municipality in assisting the maintenance of those pipes for the water that we are using underground? For now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my question doesn't state a specific page, it's more general in nature. Just going back to the Minister's budget vote speech, she spoke about the 4 pillars that would inform the response of the Western Cape government to the energy crisis. And in one of the pillars, she spoke about an allocation that would be made to local government to assist them in the piloting of projects at the municipal level for renewable energy. And I just wanted to get an understanding of where that falls within the budget and what the plans are going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, Member Maria, I allowed you to ask a general question, but it's going to be very difficult for us if we are not going to stick to the pages and everybody's going to ask general questions. So I think every question has relevance to its particular page. So one would expect that one would have made some reading and make sure that if there's a page that speaks about energy, then one would have to refer to that particular page. So I've allowed you to ask that, but please bear with me so that we don't delay the meeting any further. So I will go over to Member Dagmo.
Thanks very much, Chair. To start on 736, the narrative there is that the Premier assigned the powers and the functions relating to the traditional Khoisan law to the provincial minister responsible for local government. I think Member raise this issue indirectly. But in this act, we know that it provides for engaging community senior leaders. So I think we really need a detailed response as to exactly what has been done so far. From the last time we had a report, financial implications as was asked, and in particular the exact allocation for staff and whether any staff up to now have actually been appointed. I think the last time we were here, the MEC indicated that there's I think it's a national commission that's looking at certain aspects related to this. So can we just ask, has there been any feedback in regard to that? But basically, I think we want to know for this financial year, expenditure, staff, what are the plans, who's going to be consulted, and so on. And then also on 736, there's the reference there that around load shedding having become frequent and prolonged. Now, could we find out from the department, we are aware that about 3 years ago, I think it was called the Municipal Energy Resilience Initiative. I want to know what was the involvement of this department in that, because we now have kind of references to a new plan. How much money was spent on that? In which municipalities did they produce any megawatt of power, and what, in terms of the department's knowledge, was the projected cost of supplying electricity? I think that's a critical issue. We all support energy mix, but I think one of the factors is actually the issue of the cost to the consumer. So that's another one that I've raised on page 7. So do you say we can go up to 742, Chair, or
745?
Right, then on 742 is a, I think I don't even have a name that referred to this indirectly, but it does state that 30 million is going to pilots in renewable energies in certain municipalities. So we are very concerned about this whole notion of pilot projects. I mean, I want to know the detail. I mean, do we have project preparation plans? Do we have in each of those municipalities what are the intentions from this department as to when the municipalities that will receive this funding will actually be able to move to the point where they can add power to the grid or possibly supply directly to the municipality. Because as I said earlier, 2 or 3 years down the line, the municipal energy resilience project is still in a conceptual phase. And if I'm not mistaken, close to 100 million rand was already spent on that. So what is different to this 30 million? What are the actual outcomes that these identified municipalities hope to achieve? Chair, I think that's 3 questions. I'll stop there, but got another one on 746 lakhs.
Thank you very much. Let me welcome Member Class. Member Class, we are dealing with a big book from pages 735 to 792. But we are allowing members to engage on the first 10 pages, which is from pages 735 to page 745. If there's anything from your side that you want to ask, I'm more than welcome to engage. If I equal, I equal. I will ask the book. Yes.
We can share.
Okay, it's fine. Now that you got a copy, then I'll ask member managers to guide you there, and then maybe we'll have a second round on this particular engagement. Then I will give you an opportunity. But for now, I'll allow the department to answer the first question. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Imam Chairperson, and members for the question. Perhaps as a question, I'm going to ask perhaps Albert to respond to those. Perhaps this other comment in it is on the support. Since 2024, that's having I can also attend on for the losses and assist the probabilities of allocations to municipalities. It's again a question on question. Load shedding, I think it's a higher grant cards, and then perhaps just on the pilots and the preparation and so on, I can also assist the responsibility. So we're looking at the thanks.
Thank you, Chati. Honorable Chair, I'll take a bit of time to explain the issue relating to concern in the province, but I'll try and do with it within 5 minutes. What we have at the moment in the province, I would like to put it forward that we do not have any traditional or Khoisan leadership which has been recognized in the province. That is where, and the Traditional Khoisan Leadership Act of 2019 basically puts a process forward. And that process begins in various places, which I think is what you were indicating. It puts various phases to it. The first phase is basically the establishment of the Commission on Khoisan Matters. Now, that commission is responsible for investigating the applications relating to the commission. What they did was to lodge, to open an application process. And the application process was opened last year, 30th of May. And that application process will go on for it's no longer 2 years now, up until next year, which is March 29 of 2024, meaning that people have got that whole process whereby they can begin to apply with the commission. Now, the commission itself has got a period of 5 years, and its 5 years ends on the 31st of August 2026. During that period, they will be actually looking at the application which have been lodged. So what it means is that the whole process of the commission is handled by the commission itself, where they go and do public hearings, where they do awareness with the different communities. So that whole process is being handled. But before they actually do the recommendation, if I can indicate what they will do, then they will refer some of the recommendations back to the Premier. And they will give the Premier at least about 60 days to actually look at that and agree or not agree in terms of that. And once that has now been completed, then they will do that recommendation to the national minister. And at that stage, we as the province begin to engage fully implementing the provisions in terms of what. Now, let me just indicate in terms of the roles and responsibilities, just sort of at high level. As I've indicated, that the national, they're actually doing the recommendations where they are appointing the commission and so on in the investigations. At the provincial level, once there has been recognition, once now we know that there are constant leadership which have been recognized, and in terms of their designations as well, whether they are chief, kings, or whatever, then as the province, that whole process of recognition will then influence in terms of how do we then begin to support them. That has got cost implications as well. Just to indicate, in terms of the current, when I'm saying in terms of the current, we're looking at the current traditional leadership where we have big things and so on, because we do not have any recognition of something similar. Now, for the kings or queens, in terms of what they were remunerated for, these are the figures, last year's figures or so. The king or a queen was remunerated around 1.2. The principal traditional leader was remunerated just about 1.1. The senior traditional leader, about 271. The headsman or headwoman, around 116,000. Now, the number of how many have been recognized hugely influences in terms of how much costs a department will carry. Now, I'm saying in terms of how much cost they will carry because in provinces where this is being practiced, the department copter is responsible for issue. You will correct me, agency, is responsible for the payment of the amounts which I've mentioned here. I don't want to mention because in some provinces they were ranging up to about actually 60 million, so I mean 60 billion, particularly in KZN. So what we did was to actually visit some of the provinces just to understand the nature of what we will be dealing as the province. Now, besides the cost which I've mentioned, I perhaps need to mention also the fact that there is a handbook on tools of the trade that gets issued. Because as the province, we are actually responsible for providing administrative and financial support to the established houses themselves. Now, come to the national house or the local houses. Now, at this stage, if you ask me if, as the province, are we saying we should have a national practitioner or national concern house at this stage? Because that is hugely influenced by the number of recognized leaders. What we've seen is that most of the provinces would have the local houses, most of which are located within districts. But in the case, for instance, of Gauteng, they only have about 2 recognized leaders. So they would not have those local houses and so on. But in some provinces where they have a huge number of traditional leaders recognized, you'll find that they even have a provincial house for them. Eastern Cape has built one. Though they are not actually required to do that at some point, they can actually use existing infrastructure. But it also depends, because what we are doing at the moment is the buildings, because we're working with National, where we begin to identify some of the pitfalls or loopholes in terms of where the provinces have gone extra and they should have not gone into that area. So we're working with them just to try and understand what are the risks that we should be avoiding. Also, there was a thought that I had now. Also, what is going to happen now is the legislation indicates that we as the department must actually do an investigation or research in terms of what policies or legislation we should be developing. Now, the TKAL, okay, I say TKAL, is actually very clear in some of the areas. So we may not, there are areas where we may not need to develop a legislation, but we'll use an existing act. But there are areas where they are very clear in terms of saying that we need to do a particular legislation. For instance, if we have to do a provincial house, then that is done through a legislation, provincial legislation. So those are the issues that we are looking at. And at the moment, what we're also doing is looking at all the policies that the different provinces have put in place so that we are able to prepare ourselves. So if I can just, in short, as a province, we are actually preparing ourselves. And there's another question in terms of the costs. It also means that there are costs that are related to the actual traditional leaders which have been recognized, but also as the responsibility of the department that we need to provide that administrative and financial support. Obviously, we need to have people within the department to be able to do that. At that stage, I think when we presented last month, we indicated that we are actually looking at this stage at about 4 people that we are appointing. And that basically to be able to support the research. Now, we do not have resources in the department at this stage to do that. I have been given that responsibility to sort of try and make sure that there is that institutionalization. We have done interviews. We are in the process of actually completing that particular process where we appoint. But if I can just indicate, in a nutshell, is around 7 million that we have sort of looked at it and costed in a nutshell at this stage, just to start off. But if you look at page 742, I'm sure I'm still within that 5 minutes time. If you look at 742, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from below, paragraph 5 from below, it indicates the amount which has been allocated at this stage for over the MTF paper, which is an amount of 6.37 million, which is basically allocated over the MTF paper. So, thank you, sir. I've tried to make a huge thing. Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair, Honourable Member. On the water losses, I just want to thank you. You did it now right on there. That is the best value for money. Try and along this. That means that you can have more of your capital to spend on other more urgent needs. So if you can bring down the demand, that is sure the way to go. The way how we do this is we assist the municipalities with the installation of water meters, smart water meters, and the zonal meters, so that you can narrow the area in which you've got to go and look for the meter. So if you know how much water is coming out, how much water is coming in and going out in a certain area, and it's not telling up, then you know there's something wrong. And there is that thing. Another way, and yes, it has proved to be extremely successful. We typically see that in the municipality, where we could actually delay looking for new well fields by just reducing the demand. Another advantage of smart meters are that during the evening, these smart meters are sending signals to the municipality to the management system. So in the morning, when the water manager comes in, he goes through the records and he can identify at night where were the high water flows, which immediately he prints out and he performs report to his team, and they go investigate at those homes where the problem are, whether it's at the meter, whether it's before the meter or in the yard. And in terms of your policy, you can also do that. You can actually go into the yard and fix the leakages there. Normally it's at the system or the washes of the taps. When it comes to the aging infrastructure, that is the lack of maintenance. Yes, that is indeed a big problem. We are staying in a country where most of our towns are sitting at this point of infrastructure, water infrastructure pipes that is reaching the end of their lives. We're also sitting with asbestos pipes that we know that is so frequently existing. So how we assist there is it's about entities are encouraged to keep a record of where there is frequent water bursts. And then based on that, you can also then narrow down the area, go and look and investigate what is the problem, to identify whether it is material that is just old or whether it is maybe the pressure. If it's old pipe, you develop for the water old pipe replacement program. And when it's pressure, to identify the installation of pressure reducing valves. How we assist in that is obviously through our additional resources, resources that are given to our grant program. So our technical assistance with grant. And then with our grants, we've got two, we've got the water resilience grant as well as resource support grant. We've got quite a number of examples that I can share with various given funds for pipe replacement as well as installation of water.
Thank you. Just a question that the support that obviously all the municipalities may be affected by the polling. Obviously, it won't be directly that they will be affected, but I mean, the team works very closely with all the legal advisors, but also the administration as well. So there is an impact on those pensions within the administration. The team is obviously in contact with the municipalities, advice. Even if it comes down and filters down to the council itself, we've obviously, I think, an important aspect is strengthening the councils as well as the administration. We've got the new legislations that have been coming in as well. We talk about the municipal systems that have just been promulgated on the 1st of November 2022. So we've capacitated municipalities with that as well. So provisions that are in there from state review. If anything does, maybe election does impact on the administration or on the council, that can be dealt with.
So, thanks, Chairperson. I think just a question around the renewables and what are some of the projects in the pilots, particularly the question of honourable member around just the resilience. I would assume that the honourable member is talking about the INET, which is the Integrated National Electrification Program, where the national government has supported many municipalities throughout the country by means of conditional grants. It is access to electricity in many municipalities where citizens and residents previously did not have access to electricity. So that's a program that actually started, I think, as early as 1994, where the national government actually developed this grant, and I think it carried on to 2016. And we can get a detail of that. But that was where citizens and communities did not have access to electricity, and the national government, as I said, has given most municipalities grant based on predetermined criteria around that. Just in terms of the project, so we've indicated that that over the MTIF, and I think both the Premier and the ministers have spoken about it, that over the MTIF we secured 1.1 billion to provide some sort of relief to municipalities to reduce the reliance of the Western Cape province on the grid of Eskom. And so this department has also received a stint of that, and that's about 58 million, and we can give the detail of it. Part of it is also to go look at renewables and certain pilots in municipalities. Firstly, to reduce the reliance on Eskom, and actually to begin with own generation in certain municipalities. So yesterday I had a consultation session with one of the municipalities in the province. We think significantly Eskom, the network is extremely constrained. Most probably as for a municipality like that and a town like that should be considered for a local program like this. So there are many examples of it. One of the examples that actually is on the market is where you put out solar panels and you put out supported by battery. And it requires about 1.7 hectares per megawatt. And it can go from 1 megawatt to 400 megawatt for a particular municipality. But it can actually take the entire town or towns off the grid, or otherwise reduce the reliance of those municipalities on the grid. So we, together with the entire energy team, is now in the process of identifying, and that's why we call it pilots. So we got money in the Department of the Area got funding of it. So we combining our efforts, and we'll go to the ministers and the Premier to say, these are the pilots that we have identified. But the idea is, Honourable Chairperson and members, it's actually to open up to the majority of the municipalities. So immediately after this meeting, I'm engaging Clary from the City of Cape Town together with Saldanha Bay. Saldanha Bay is going again for gas to energy. So we are trying to help them to look at the options, to look at feasibility studies and so on, but also to get transactional advice on board for municipalities so that they're not on their own, so that we provide this kind of support services to municipalities, whether that's by means of transactional advice, by feasibility studies, because we don't want municipalities actually to make mistakes. It can become costly around it. So between ourselves, the Department of the Premier, ourselves, local government, economic development from a economic perspective, agriculture from an agriculture perspective, and the provincial treasury, we are working together in this space, obviously with the energy advisor of the Premier, Alvin Lester, working to see. So there's 19 deliverables that we have identified amongst ourselves, and this renewable program is one of them. And we are looking at it to make a final decision in the next week or two, so that we can actually begin to roll it out in the next month or so. So just based on our own research, we've established that if we look at this project about putting out the panels, it's a mobile unit that can pick it up and put it anywhere. What the market is saying, is the research is saying, from about 3 months from the order, there can be an energy in the grid and so on. So we're looking at some options, and we're also dealing with Mossel Bay, we're dealing with George and so on. But it's giving advice to municipalities and trying. Some municipalities have the capacity to do their own. Others we are supporting and just giving advice to some of the municipalities. Thanks, Jake. Maris, I'm not sure whether you wish to add or again.
Actually, you covered it extensively.
Colleagues, is there any follow-up questions on the first 10 questions or new questions? Follow-ups? Jeff, are you?
Can we follow up?
So, but do you have a question?
Why not?
Then we allow Mr. Class to just raise. Okay, let me do the follow-ups. I'll start from Mama Matud and then end by Member Dagmar. And then after that, something else.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just one question on the follow-up. Here on the issue of the Provincial, there is the ability to get more of the South government to be responsible. But when you look at the administration program, you have the decrease of the compensation. So where are you saving? Because I'm seeing that from the 2022 to 2023 versus 2023-2024, there is a 1.87% that you less than, and with adding the employee benefits to increase. So where did you say, looking also as you had a decrease of about 6.2% on the I think it's a equitable share, if I calculate it correctly. So where are you saving to make sure that you can absorb the pressure of the salaries for those more that you will be getting? And then the second one being, if 2026 the commission for the date for the report of the commission versus the legislation that you will have to do, are you going to wait for that commission to talk to what legislation are you going to do for the person that you did with the other provinces? Much as I'm John, I know it's totally different from where I come from, KwaZulu Natal, and it's totally different. Now, if you're going to make a legislation, it's going to be based on which research, which one is closer to the question that you think you are going to use that as the benchmarking for the legislation, and how are you going to sort of tap into the commission's report to make sure that it talks to what will be the outcome of the commission for 2026, and how in the meantime, what is going to happen? In my mind, so you don't have anything that you're going, the framework it will be maybe the commission's report. So how and if you are going to use the framework as the research in all projects, I'm going to associate which one are you going to take? Because totally different worlds of the monarchy in the whole country. Beautiful and totally different. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just to follow up on my question, page 7.5. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. So with regards to climate change, budget tagging, and just going back to my previous question of the 4 pillars, I note the department's feedback and advice being given in terms of the pilot project. And I similarly asked in the budget committee what consideration is being made on the impact of revenue collection of municipalities. The response I received from HOD Savage was that this is a structural issue and not necessarily an issue of the Western Cape government. But I do think it's still an important issue to keep in mind, particularly if you are rendering advice and support throughout the implementation of these pilot projects. So I just wanted to get a little bit more information on what the department thought would be the necessary steps to take to mitigate against the loss in revenue. Thank you.
Thank
you, Chair. Just a few follow-up questions. Thank you very much for the report about where we are with the Khoisan traditional education. I would imagine that, you know, work about visiting other provinces and so on is critical and that would be supported. But I want to know how many actual meetings in the Western Cape have been held where, for instance, in different regions, people who see themselves as Khoi and San traditional leaders have actually been called, where the province has explained the application process. There does still seem to be some time, because in what I read, I'm sorry about the staff glasses, my other glasses are big, so these are actually glasses. It says that for the search, I understand, policy, I understand, obviously, the point of legislation, we'd have to have a provincial law and support services, but I don't see anything there about community awareness. I think the last time the department was here, Chair, they did indicate putting out flyers, but surely the department, maybe you have done it, but we're just not aware as members. You physically go to the different regions, including the metro, and say, this is our responsibility, these are the criteria, this is how you apply. Because I think, I'm not saying there is, I just think more should be done, and it seems to me that some of this money that's allocated over the MTEP should be used for that. So that's the one follow-up. And then the HOD responded, and you referred to a national energy initiative, but what I'm actually asking is, about 3 years ago, the province launched a municipal energy resilience project. So my question was, what was the role of this department in that? How much was spent? I know, I don't want to be facetious and say that, was this just a footy? Was this just another announcement that didn't go anywhere? I'm a skill positive. Can you just be open with that? So were you involved in this? What, from your point of view, this is about municipal energy resilience. So I presume the department was involved. So that was what I was actually asking. So I think those are just the follow-ups. You're obviously still, I mean, I appreciated the answer on water losses. And I just wanted to ask, what is the relationship of this department with the National Department of Affairs in the province? It's the National Department in the province, and what is that relationship? And do you have a sense that municipalities have got a plan for replacing the aging infrastructure and the asbestos pipes? I mean, do they have plans? Do any sense on how much and that will cost them?
Member Class, before I follow up question, I'll allow you an opportunity to ask your 3 questions. Last. Sure. And continue. Just try to ask the question that showing in my understanding. In the issue of Khoisan, I want just to ask, as per discussion that is one looking at on that topic, trying to read something. My question is that, are you seeing from your experience of giving, assisting to make sure Khoisan is available and is doing well? What are you seeing? Are you seeing that there is a save of government? Because government, what you need GBV to be in place. Government need children to look up. Government need houses to be built. So what is the role of Khoisan in the province on that major issue? Thank you. I'd like to start for
the water leakages and the installation of meters. Are these meter leakages or these meters that are installed in the whole province or in a certain individual area? There was a place that I have never seen the meter that said that you count your water, then if the water, some of other, the advantage of this meter I'm trying to explain is that there is the meters that if that meter says the amount of water is not there and it's closed, and that is the reason I asked you. There are such meters in other areas when the meter is it says that it's enough and it's close to water control, or which areas that you have picked out in order for that. Closing to the last third one with electricity. That is very crucial in the municipalities. And I would like you to know that if the municipality have created their own policy or your policy was discussed with you, where the electricity is deducted with the money of the rent. If you go pay rent, take 50% of your amount to the rent, then 50% of the amount to electricity. So those who are granted by government, if you've got 100 rent, they will got 50 rent units, and that units cannot hold if you are rent earner for a month. So how did you discuss that? Can you explain to us what I'm thinking?
Thank you very much, Member Clark. I've just got 2 or 3. Firstly, it will be on the war against water leakages. I would just, my question is, are we winning the fight again? Making sure that there is reduction in terms of our water losses. Because why I'm asking that, because this is one of the contributors for municipalities to be financially sustainable. But if we are not winning that, then I'm afraid that our rural municipalities are not going to be financially viable. So are we winning that fight and making sure that there is reduction in terms of our water losses? And also what one tend to find, especially in the rural municipalities, is the issue of the aging infrastructure. Every week, once a month, there is pipes bursting in the main roads in all areas, not just on certain areas in our communities. And how many municipalities actually budget for maintenance of aging infrastructure? And how many municipalities actually use what they have budgeted for in terms of maintenance of aging infrastructure, implement that? And also lastly, the COI, it's why? Because remember, I was in the NCOP and we had an engagement in terms of the COI, and there's a perception as if that the province is anti the traditional council houses. And it's, I'm glad to hear that Gauteng also does not have a house of traditional leaders. So when the process that is undertaken by the commission is concluded, what is it that we as a province is expected to do? Do we agree to what we are told that Mulelo Sileku is the king of the gyms? Or do you question that, or do you just implement the work of the commission? So that everybody is clear. Because everybody currently in our communities raise their hand and say, I'm a COI. Everybody say, I'm a certain chief. So those are the points that everybody wants to be somewhere anywhere in our country. So I just want us to have a clear understanding, what is it that is expected from us in terms of the work that is currently undertaken by the commission to identify legitimate and genuine kings, chiefs, and members. Thank you.
on the quote. It's something we're working on our answer these problems with some of the
Okay, actually, thanks. Chair, the first question there was on water phase and our relationship with it. Over the last couple of years, they've got a new CEO, and we've extensive relationship with him. We are working closely with him. When we're doing our grant assessments, they are part of our team. When we are deciding on how do we prioritize maybe the big funds or the own funds, water, WC is their funds name, we work together. So there's no problem there. In terms then of the pipe replacement program, we've got as part of our 15-year plan, one of the deliverables was that they had to look at the age of all the infrastructure. And obviously that will be a direct indication as to where the priorities be. Your question in terms of whether there's programs in all these municipalities, that will be basically be prioritized in terms of the outcome of ages of these various neighborhoods. And like I indicated earlier, the frequency of water pipe bursts that occur in those areas. We obviously also look every month, municipalities report on the water losses. So there's a very clear indication where we've got to focus. But in terms of our water drought response plan and water resilience plan, obviously there where we see we're going to run out of water, those are immediately getting a higher weight because, like I indicated also earlier, your question earlier, first go and stop. The water on leaks program from Water Affairs came to an end, but we are now working with them again to resuscitate that. And in terms of our water resilience grant and our own local government grants, as well as PIC and the WC of Water Affairs, we make sure that that is prioritized to attend to these most high-risk areas. In terms of the question, are we winning? We can do better. But where we've got our program, like we've had on the drought program, Central Korea, yes, we've got evidence that in Heinsberg and Kimbouwood West and some of the other towns as well, we find a huge impact in the loss of water reduction. And there's also obviously a direct link to revenue. The next one was on maintenance. Yeah, it's an area that one can talk to about for days. So we're working with Provincial, especially on asset management. And obviously one of the key aspects there is how do you use the knowledge of your assets to influence your budget. There must be a clear link with the American budget that talks to the age condition assessment of your assets. So yes, there is, according to me, program looking at that, and as well as when we are looking at evaluating municipal budgets, there's indicator there of 8% of PPE, operating plant and equipment. We we obviously encourage municipalities to ensure that they stay with that benchmark. And then with many of these grants, the grant will not be approved for new infrastructure if the municipality cannot put on paper that they actually make adequate allowance for maintenance. Thank you.
Obviously, there's honorable chairperson, there's infrastructure master plans that look at the aging of infrastructure, and others have done excellent work with municipalities, providing funding for infrastructure master plans. At another time, others been funded.
Thank you. Decrease in budget is basically around the fact that there are once-off costs, where we're looking mainly at equipment for the people that will be allocated. So we've allocated it in the current financial year. And so it's basically putting that to make sure that yes. So that's why you see the decrease. The second question, I call it a complex matter. I just didn't know that. I call the whole, traditional COISA leadership a complex matter. And of course, it needs to be resolved. And as we go, we are going to resolve it. In terms of the legislation, you're asking, because there are differences in practices across. And in those practices, we do not have something similar to what we just about to do. But if we look at the Act, if I had time, I'll take you through the Act to actually indicate what are the various areas where the Act says must do X, Y, Z. Just quickly. Where it says it makes a provision for provincial houses and traditional COISA leaders, which may be established in the provinces. I think Kamal knows better the use of the may and the must. I'm not going to go into that. It also makes provision for the establishment. The legislation is required for that. The establishment of local houses. Also, you have a section 818, which provides for the recognition of the COISA by the Premier or the Minister. That we must do, they must actually do, there must be a COISA council. So those are the things that we also look at. And also, as the province, we must also do some legislation to provide for as a regulatory mechanism for the implementation of that. So there are various pieces where it is very clear that we need to do a legislation. And some of those legislation we can see that in some sort of generic legislation. For instance, there was a mechanism to deal with disputes. Obviously, you need something there. It may be common in different provinces. The issues of donations, how we manage that, and the fact that we as the province, along with that provincial treasury, may be required to actually establish bank accounts for those particular institutions. If we are going to support them and monitor their finances, because they'll be audited, obviously there are generic sort of pieces of policies and legislation that are required. So that's why I call it a complex, because it is a huge task. At the moment, we actually, there are second basically understanding the function, the way it is, and it would be just indicated to me at some point that closer to the time we need to spend, even if it's few months for different provinces to understand the complexities of the function. A question comes about the role of the COISA leader. It is something that is provided for in the institution. I would not treat it separately to the role of the traditional leaders, where we actually preserve the customs and traditions of different communities. And it goes way back from the existence of the traditional leaders as they were being practiced mostly in our rural communities. So it's basically preserving the existence of certain traditional communities which practice their cultural and traditional beliefs. I think because they become part of the government, so part of one of sort of an institution, because we call it an institution of traditional leaders. So they become part of that institution. Obviously, they will work within the parameters of government. They will also be aligned to government priorities. Also, the issues of gender and based violence, all the priorities of government. But we have to filter their plans as well, because they have to have plans in terms of what they do. An interesting question is, are we expected to take what comes from the commission? If I can just indicate what is some of our lessons that we got from our other colleagues when it comes to the implementation of the traditional leaders. One of those was that the commission will have to actually give us, and we have to interact strongly with their reports. Just from what I see, we can foresee a process where you actually recognize and de-recognize. Let me just paint it up right now. The provinces have indicated that once the commission comes, the litigation comes in. I'll just leave it at that because it's a long process that comes in. So the possibility is that we have to try and prepare ourselves and get ready for some of those things. It may happen, it may not happen. In terms of the awareness, if I can just quickly jump to that. At the moment, what we cannot, as the department at this stage, though we try, which is why we always talk to some of the flyers. At the moment, if I am receiving a query regarding application process for the prospective community, that I refer to the commission. Because the commission has got its own process, they've got its own ways of, registering all the things that they can do. In the meantime, what they've done in the Western Cape, they've done 2 workshops. One was a launch, which they did, and the second one was just an awareness, which they did. And we have communicated with them strongly that we need to have an awareness, particularly in the Western Cape, whether we do it in partnership with them. And we provided the various platforms that we have for them to be able to do their awareness. And just not too long ago, I was with one he was doing a 2 South Center managers forum, where we actually spoke and said, if their commission can actually work with them in different ways, making sure that they do that communication and awareness in their respective provinces. But what the commission has been indicating in this current financial year was the issues of budgets. However, they have promised that in the new financial year, they are hoping that they will release more budget for them to be able to do the awareness raising. If I can indicate, hence this is something that we're looking at. I actually have the numbers that I looked at in terms of the applications currently. This figure now is around, I still have to try and find, because they are required to update the cleaner in terms of the applications at the province. And the last update, which they did, was around December. And that indicated about 53 applications which have been done in the whole country. And in the Western Cape, we've got about 34 applications. Eastern Cape, there were 10 applications. In Limpopo, there was none. Free State, 2. Northern Cape, 5. Gauteng, 1. KwaZulu-Natal, 1. Northwestern Mpumalanga was none. Now, what they have indicated to me not too long ago was that they are in the process of, they were in the process of engaging just the first 10 applications, but I'm not sure whether they have that strategy, because we spoke in terms of saying we have 10 applications, 34 applications in the Western Cape, and out of the top 10, they have 2 people that are coming from the Western Cape. Will it not be better if they want to interact with those who have applied, they invite the whole 34? So I think they might be reconsidering that. But what they're trying to do now is to interact with those to actually take them through the whole criteria, and also in terms of what is missing in their application. So they're trying to assist the people who have applied in order to provide the relevant evidence and documentation that is important.
Thanks, Chairperson. Thanks, Albert. I think it's a good idea. We can also look at our own sort of awareness in the problems. I think the Commission has done it, and as Albert said, the National Department has done it, and we have done it in the Asian with them. And it's also while there's time left and to raise awareness about the application process, we can actually see to what extent we can actually move some of the funds. We include the awareness raising perhaps in each of the districts, but also in the city of Cape Town, and just maybe amplify awareness raising that time is running out for those that want to be recognized, but also just the assisted in the application process so that we can see that we get all. And I think it's a good idea to all take it on board and consider it. But a lot of work is going into it. I mean, we must also draft our own provincial legislation, as Albert is saying, just to report some of the gaps in the current legislation, and we are on board with the Department of the Criminal Services to begin to develop our own legislation to fill up some of the gaps. This, in terms of my apology for the misunderstanding, I think it is the municipal energy resilience project. It happened. I must now perhaps be careful what I'm saying. I would like to have that program with the Department of that program has been allocated to the Department of Economic Development. They have got the funding, the EMR funding, before the Municipal Energy Resilience Fund, and they've actually transferred that funding to certain municipalities in the province. There are about 6 candidate municipalities together with the City of Cape Town. So the City of Cape Town, it's Drakenstein, Mosselbaai, Oudtshoorn, Saldanha Bay, Stellenbosch municipalities. They are part of it. And so there's 4 areas. There's 4 areas in relation to this program. That is the municipal procurement. They're trying to assist municipalities through this process, identifying projects, classifying the projects. They've given extensive support to the City of Cape Town, but the City of Cape Town, I must say, has overtaken all the municipalities in the provinces in their aggressive nature in dealing with this. And obviously, as I say, there was the MER grant fund from where the provincial treasury has given funding to the Department of Economic Development, and they have allocated this funding and transferred it to this candidate municipalities within the province to help them. And so it also talks about private sector enablement. It talks about the private sector support that they've given them. It talks about billing, and it talks about also the small scale embedded generation private sector. The other component was around just the enabling infrastructure, the grid and the transmissions infrastructure upgrades. We can generate all the electricity, but if the grid can't deal with it, they've got significant problems. So they're also looking at that, and then energy storage as well. The last component of that particular project, what we call enabling systems. So looking at pool buying in municipalities, finance and funding systems, where we can actually go to international companies or international countries to look at funding and how we can. And obviously the last component is the demand and supply. So just on the question whether they've actually generated any megawatt over the last 3 years, no. The targets are for 500 megawatt in 2025, 700 megawatt in 2027, and 1,600 in 2032 to generate via the MRP program. But I think, Chairperson, that will be overtaken by the entire energy program now, because there's new objectives that have been set in terms of the way forward, and to what extent the entire province to get off the, not off the grid, but is reliant on the ESCOM energy grid. But ideally, given the fact that we engage municipalities, our role in it was to facilitate the interface between the departments and the other stakeholders with municipalities. We fulfill that role, and that was a limited role. But I think we've given the project, we can also help in accelerating the program. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Is there more?
Mr.
No, I'll give another round.
From me, it's more of not a question. I think, Chair, through you, we can have the more engagement when coming to the next level, coming to the so that we get a briefing, because the more the answer, perhaps interesting for us to hear more information. And I know one of the challenges that we are going to face is the issue of the linkage immediately after we go this. So it's going to grow to be some other things that are going to be there. So ideally for us to continue with the budget and agree that there needs to be one of the first of the agendas. So for the planning to take us through, or how are they going to roll out in the whole implementation of the treaty.
Yeah, Member Mathodia to scanner with Joanne here. Remember, I'm still new to my second meeting as the chair of the committee. We still need to adopt our program. And one of the items that we have put up is actually to have a briefing from the department specifically with a time plan and COISAMs. Yeah. So we will engage in that. Thank you. Member Dapper.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick follow-up. I just want to ask, the HOD mentioned that in this MERP program, it was located under economic development, and that there were 6 municipalities. When I heard, maybe I missed out, but I didn't hear the name of George. I heard Drakenstein, Overstrand, Saldan, and Australia, I think Stellenbosch. So if you could just have what were those ones in the MERP, and then you said, you know, that's all now going to be overtaken by the new energy program. Can we just get what is the official name now for whatever the new plan is called? I mean, we've often raised the problem that the Premier often announces things which he hasn't thought through, and then they collapse. I mean, that's just a view that I'm expressing. So it seems that this was one of those where over 100 million rand was spent, but a single megawatt was produced. Now that plan seems to be in the dustbin. Wasn't even involving this department. So I just ask, in terms of the whatever it's now for, which are the municipalities that are being prioritized and by this department, or is that decision being made by somewhere else? That's what I would like to.
Just mention on the just want to find out, because I know from the Department of Agriculture that there are solar farms, clean energy that was wrong. Is that part of that energy resilience that the Premier announced, or is something different from the NGR? Thank you.
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson. So the MER is still part of the whole now. It's the integrated resource plan. I can call it actually the integrated resource plan. And it encapsulates the initiatives around MER, and encapsulates the renewables, but it encapsulates this 19 deliverables that this entire team must now deliver. So the MER is not terminated. Still continues. So we're running the MER in parallel or as part of the broader integrated resource plan. And so we're going to do some of the pilots that will help this municipalities and the MER, because they're quite advanced, they're really quite advanced. And so some of the municipalities can also learn from them what has been transpired and so on. So And municipalities also come on board. So George has also come on board. George has done extensive work around those. But the city of Cape Town, as I say, has overtaken just by means of the work that they've done thus far. And you talk about the solar farms in relation to agriculture and so on. I mean, this is all included in the broader integrated resource plan. And it's spoken about yesterday. And there is now an idea just to finalize what we call the integrated resource plan in the province. But particularly around the renewables and working with municipalities, we have now been asked to lead that process as a partner. And I think from where we sit with capacity and confidence, we will take comfortable to lead it. And we will now play a bigger role in the broader integrated resource planning policy.
Thank you, HOD. Colleagues, we are in the middle of us going to the next session of questions. So I'll leave it in your hands. Would you want to continue from pages 746 to 755, or would you want to go on a tea break for 10 to 15 minutes?
Chairperson.
Should I make a suggestion?
Okay.
We go for a tea break. When we come back, we present the whole budget, that many pages, so that we ask questions. Don't have to go for a tea break. That is all right.
What is also
That when we come back, we will take pages 746 until 792.
Chairperson, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just raise a random question.
There's somebody on the platform.
Chairperson. Chairperson, can you hear me?
Oh, member Bibi.
Yes, Chairperson. My sincere apologies. I'm joined on a device which is my cell phone. So I've actually raised my hand up. So my apologies that you could not see me. It was before I can say you can move. Just a follow up from my side, if you may allow me, Chairperson.
Since you are allowed.
Can you hear me?
You can continue, member.
Okay. Yes, just a follow-up. I was actually listening attentively on one of the questions that was asked around the issue of electricity, where most municipalities do deduct the amount. I was listening for a response. If maybe it was responded to, please forgive me that I could not actually get the response, because it has become a regular practice from municipalities when people owe the municipality for water and they actually deduct a certain percentage, a certain amount. In most municipalities, 50% when people go and buy electricity. Now, this actually it proves actually it's very problematic to residents, this matter. But I remember at some point when it was raised even in the House, the response from the minister, but it was just by way of interjection. He said that the Minister of Local Government, the provincial minister, he said that it's not illegal. So, but then if it's not illegal, I want to maybe with the help and assistance of the officials that are present from the Department of Local Government, which law empowers municipalities to actually deduct this money? Because it was said that it's not illegal, is there a certain law that maybe we can be informed of that allows municipality to deduct 50% of the residents' money when they buy electricity? Thank you, Chairperson.
Colleagues, did you hear Member Bibi?
So Chairperson. So I mean that question was raised many times by many municipalities, and I think by the standing committee as well. We've obtained a legal opinion that says that the practice by municipalities to deduct when citizens are behind with the payment in terms of other services, that you can actually deduct a certain amount from what they're buying. Say, for instance, they're buying electricity. they can actually deduct it from that and then give them the balance of the units and so on. We had also concerns, so we went for a legal opinion. And the legal opinion said that the practice in law is actually something. What we can perhaps do is to take the standing committee at some time to the legal opinion, or perhaps understanding as to what the reason was based on legal opinion.
Thanks, you. Just on that matter, I think the MBC and the HOD will acknowledge that we were promised that the standing committee that legal opinion, and we haven't received it yet. So, I would request that we do get that opinion, because I personally think that that opinion needs to be tested, consistent with the indigent policy. So if we could just note, I mean, obviously we'll do resolutions at the end.
Yes.
Or you could, because I did have this question and I didn't understand what really they are asking. Because my question was that if it's recap, which process that did they follow in order for that to be?
John? Chairperson, that's correct. What we need to is that in the document, the department we provided, and I think we need distributed to the neighbors. I think the deadline was end of January. The question was what was requested during the annual report discussions, and it was distributed. So let me follow up from my side. Maybe then it's somewhere in the inbox or somewhere. But the department.
I apologize if it was sent to us, but thanks that it was provided. I think we will go through that. Thanks.
Colleagues, we'll break now and we'll be back at 10:15. Thank you very much. Member Class? Is there any question that you have from the remaining pages?
No, none.
Yeah. So, colleagues, I will take your lead as well and say I've read and I'm happy. Yeah, colleagues, now that we have engaged on this one, I will ask the Minister if there's any closing remarks from your side before I do my thanks.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Thank you to the Standing Committee. We're always a bit nervous when we come to you, and that's good because you do your oversight role, and it also helps us to prepare. And if we're well prepared, we've got nothing to hide. But it's also important for us in this engagement to also see what items you pull out, so where your focus will be. I think that's very important for all of us. We've got a small team, but a very dedicated team, and I want to thank all of them. And yeah, we're looking forward to engagements in the coming year. It's going to be a tough one, but there's very interesting stuff like the water plan, the 15-year water and drought resilience plan that we will present to the committee, maybe a joint committee by... And we've also invited the Standing Committee to 22nd and 23rd of March. Please participate. I'm very excited. I think it's the right thing. I think it's the right thing for our municipalities. It's an in-depth study, a lot of information that will help municipalities with their planning going forward. But from my side, thank you very much, Chairperson.
Colleagues, to the members, thank you very much for your engagement and for asking all the difficult questions, and to the department for answering all the difficult questions. For me, it was a first, and I was actually glad to see some familiar faces, you know, from a previous life. And to you, Minister, thank you very much for the kind of work that you are doing in our province in making sure that our municipalities continue to be leading within the country in terms of good governance and the delivery of services. Of course, local government is very complex. It's very complex, and with load shedding, it's going to be more difficult, but we really do appreciate what you are doing with your team. And with those few words, thank you very much. May you have a blessed day further. Thank you very much. Members have no questions, so we conclude this. Supposed to start at 15:15. We started at 20:20, so we allowed 5 minutes. And yes, you did, yeah. No. But if there's any question from your side, you're more than welcome to write to them. Yeah. Thank you. Colleagues, I will put in front of you the adjustment appropriation bill. Member Dagmar.
Just a point of order. The officials have left, obviously, but I would just like to, in the light of the documents before us, raise the following request for information.
Can we do that during our resolutions?
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, Member Marie.
Chair, I move that we adopt.
Chair, I do second.
Thank you very much.
Chairperson, if I may read in the report, report of the Standing Committee on Local Government on vote 14 local government in the schedule to the Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2022/2023 financial year. B1 of 2023, dated 16 March 2023, as follows. The Standing Committee on Local Government, having deliberated on the subject of Vote 14 Local Government in the schedule to the Western Cape Additional Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2022-2023 financial year, B1 2023, referred to the committee in accordance with Standing Rule 188, reports that it supports the vote.
Do members support the draft report?
I that we support.
Second.
Chair, thanks. In terms of the relevant rule, the ANC would like our objection to the vote registered.
Chairperson, then inclusion into the report will then be in accordance with Standing Rule 90. The African National Congress expressed its minority view that it does not support the vote. The vote does not support the vote. Is that right, Mr. Duffel?
There's a question, Member Dugmore.
Yeah, so both, we haven't done the report. Which report?
Chair, the committee supports the vote or not supports the vote. The report is adopted by the committee, and the report's adopted by the majority vote on the committee.
Yeah. No, we object to the vote.
Vote. Yeah.
Colleagues, then we'll go over to the main budget. And can I ask members for if there's members that support?
Chair, I move that we support the vote, the main budget.
Member Murray?
I second, thank you.
Yeah. Member Dugmore?
Would also like, similar to the adjustment, to record our objection against the vote in terms of the relevant rule.
Chairperson, the report of the committee, the report of the Standing Committee on Local Government on Vote 14, Local Government in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B2 2023, dated 16 March 2023, as follows. The Standing Committee on Local Government, having deliberated on the subject of Vote 14, Local Government in the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B2 2023, referred to the committee in accordance with Standing Rule 188, reports that it supports the vote. In accordance with Standing Rule 90, the ANC, the African National Congress, expressed its minority view that it does not support the vote. So, good, sir.
There's a proposal for that?
Chair, I propose that we vote.
Seconder?
Seconded.
Okay. Colleagues, thank you very much for that. Is there any resolutions that one would want to put to the committee? I'll just start with Member Dugmore, then come to Kayla, and then I'll end with Member Amahloti. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I would propose that the department provides the Standing Committee with a full report on the Matsikama municipality, including the status of the forensic report at the municipality, as well as the circumstances surrounding the resignation of the municipal manager. Secondly, that the committee requests the department to provide a full report on the Cedarburg municipality, in particular, the report on the absence of councillors at more than 3 consecutive meetings, and the
response of the department towards that absence of more than 3 meetings. Thirdly, that the department provides us a full report of all appointments at the Knysna municipality and the status of all current litigation in that municipality. That fourthly, the department provides us a report about the status of the Samstein councillor, Councillor Nuka, who is facing charges for sexual harassment, and indicate whether the speaker has initiated an inquiry into the matter. That the committee requests a full report on the involvement of the Department of Local Government to resolve the dispute at the CP Nel Museum at the municipality. I think we've covered the issue of the legal opinion, and also the other legal opinion that we had requested, and I think our committee coordinator can indicate whether we've received it or not, is the legal opinion where the City of Cape Town has indicated their unwillingness to provide answers to questions directed to the MEC for local government in regard to matters affecting the City of Cape Town. Then if we could have a full list of all legal advisors to the department internally, and those that have been procured. If we could also then have a list of all the MPAC chairs from the Western Cape municipalities, and an indication as to whether they come from the governing party of that municipality or from an opposition party. And that in regard to the municipal energy resilience plan, that we asked the department for a full report on their involvement together with the Department of Economic Development, the monies spent and the progress achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Dugmo. Member Murray.
Thank you, Chair. I was very interested to hear about the roving generators that are going from municipality to municipality. And I was wondering if the department could share a bit more information in relation to the costs, which municipalities are assisted, what is done in the event of competing demands for the generators. And also on this, I remember in a discussion with an official from DDAT, them saying that they were doing a similar initiative. And so I wanted to know if there was a partnership with any other departments. They were calling them DLG inverters, but I'm not sure if it's the same project. And maybe possibly we could visit in future when the diary allows. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Murray. Member Maseko.
Thank you, Chair. I think the first one is of the progress of the quiescence, like I indicated in the meeting. I think Johan captured that. And the second one, it will be of the, what do they call it? The day engagement for the, in water, we were saying day zero, so total black or something like that. What do they call it? The blackouts. The plans in place of the blackouts, if that can happen, or the province readiness for the blackouts, if you can also have that engagement, and also to also hear about the issue of the chairperson, the legislation of the MPEX, as the permanent, the province. What is their take? When are they going to implement, or they are going to implement, the cost attached, and what just the background to the MPEC being a full-time position. You know better of the legislation. I don't know what legislation is that, but I know that is it. And the last one, chairperson, it will be the joint, maybe the joint. They talked about the joint meetings. I can't remember. They were talking about the infrastructure, or was it about the energy resilience? that they were suggesting that maybe we can have a joint committee meetings when they do the briefing to that. But having the Department of the Infrastructure now, if we can maybe engage with the and I saw on the budget that the grant, like the EPWP, it's going it's going to be in the infrastructure. Now, how is the Department of Local Government, because they were championing that, how is that going to work, and how are they going to align the municipality special planning framework versus the infrastructure? Because if there is somewhere else, one way or another, there's going to be cross lines. How are they going to operate? So that's to give us the scope of up to what an extent, or there is the MOU between the departments on how to deal with it in assisting the municipalities, or there is a direct delegation from the infrastructure to municipalities, who monitors who, how, and just that, Chair. Because we cannot separate the infrastructure from the special planning in the framework in the municipality. So somewhere, somehow, and then they spoke about the JD of the district municipalities, which they talked about the infrastructure, bulk services. There was a system that was in place for that. But now with the new department, we need to get a briefing of now, how is that going to evolve to have the new systems in place for the department, just for us to have that briefing as we do the oversight. Then we know that what is it that in implementation of those service delivery, how are they going to operate, for us to understand. Thank you, Chair.
There's only one from my side. If you look in terms of page 746, there's mention in terms of section 154, support to municipalities. So we would love the department just to give us more info in terms of the municipality that has asked for support in terms of section 154. What kind of support have those municipalities asked for, and how far, are the plans for the different municipalities in terms of, and how have they already taken council decisions pertaining for that request to be implemented by the department in terms of section 154. That's all from my side. Colleagues, then from my side, thank you very much. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.